Hey there, it's me again, Michelle, and welcome back to my Canadian History channel. Today's episode, The Red River Rebellion, will be about the 1869 rebellion by Métis leader Louis Riel and the founding of Manitoba. Okay, let's jump right in. Before starting, I just want to let you know something about the word Manitoba. Native legend has it that at the Lake Manitoba Narrows, a strong wind can send waves washing against the limestone rocks of an offshore island. This unique sound made by the waves is said to be that of Manitou, or the Great Spirit. And in Ojibwe, the sound is called Manitobo. This legend survives today in the province's name, Manitoba. Now, for the Red River Rebellion. The rebellion was the sequence of events that led up to the 1869 establishment of a provisional government. This was led by Métis leader Louis Riel and his followers at the Red River Colony, also known as Assiniboia. The colony had been a land grant to Lord Selkirk way back in 1811 by the Hudson's Bay Company and sat between Lake Superior and Lake Winnipeg, the location of present-day Winnipeg, Manitoba. The rebellion itself was the early stages of establishing today's Canadian province of Manitoba. The area had earlier been part of a territory called Rupert's Land and had been under the control of the Hudson's Bay Company before it was sold to Canada. The rebellion was the first crisis the new federal government faced after Canadian Confederation in 1867. The Canadian government had bought Rupert's Land from the Hudson's Bay Company in 1869 and appointed an English-speaking governor, William McDougall. McDougall was against the idea of a colony becoming a future province, as it had very few inhabitants at the time. And as a result, he was opposed to by the local French-speaking, mostly Métis inhabitants of the settlement. Historically, the population of the area was mainly Francophone Métis, who developed a mixed ethnicity descendant of First Nations and French descent. This marriage of cultures created its own unique culture developed during the decades of the fur trade. In the 18th and 19th centuries, the French and First Nation people intermarried, established a tradition of working as trappers, guides, and interpreters to fur traders, and developed farms. This Métis culture was based on the French language and the Roman Catholic religion. Then, in the late 18th century, English and Scottishmen entered the fur trade and also married into the Ojibwe people and other First Nations in the region. Their mixed-race descendants generally spoke English. The third group of settlers to the region was a small number of Scottish settlers. Then more Anglophone Protestants began to settle there from Ontario in the 19th century. The newer settlers were generally insensitive to the original Métis culture and hostile to the Roman Catholicism, and many advocated Canadian expansionism. Also at the time, many Americans migrated there, some of whom favored annexation of the territory by the United States. Now, before the land was officially transferred to Canada, Governor William McDougall had sent out surveyors to plot the land according to the square township system used in the public land survey system. The Métis, however, used the French seigneurial system of land management. The Métis, led by Louis Riel, prevented McDougall from entering the territory. McDougall declared that the Hudson's Bay Company was no longer in control of the territory and that Canada had asked for the transfer of sovereignty to be postponed. In reaction, the Métis created a provisional government to which they invited an equal number of Anglophone representatives. Riel negotiated directly with the Canadian government to establish Manitoba as a Canadian province. Meanwhile, Riel's men arrested members of a pro-Canadian faction who had resisted the provisional government. The faction included Thomas Scott, who, with others, had made an attempt to overthrow the provisional government. Riel's government tried and convicted Scott for insubordination and executed him. Canada and the Assiniboia Provisional Government, a short-lived legislature established to pass laws for the Northwestern Territory and Rupert's Land, soon negotiated an agreement. In 1870, the Parliament of Canada passed the Manitoba Act, allowing the Red River Colony to enter Confederation as the Province of Manitoba, which would cover only 200,000 hectares of land. The act also incorporated some of Riel's demands, such as the provision of separate French schools for Métis children and the protection of Catholicism. After reaching an agreement, Canada sent a military expedition to Manitoba to enforce federal authority. Now known as the Wolseley Expedition, it consisted of Canadian militia and British regular soldiers led by Colonel Garnet Wolseley. Outrage had grown in Ontario over the earlier execution of Thomas Scott, and many there wanted Wolseley's expedition to arrest Riel for murder and to suppress what they considered to be rebellion. Riel peaceably withdrew from Fort Garry before the troops could arrive in August of 1870. He had been warned that the soldiers would harm him and he would be denied amnesty for his political leadership of the rebellion, so Riel fled to the United States. This and the arrival of troops marked the end of the Red River Rebellion. As punishment, in 1875, Riel was formally exiled from Canada for 5 years. Under pressure from Quebec, the government of Sir John A. Macdonald took no more vigorous action. Riel was elected to the Canadian Parliament 3 times in exile, but never took his seat. He returned to Canada in 1885 to lead the ill-fated Northwest Rebellion. I'll talk more on this in a future video, but for this he was tried by a jury of 6 Anglophone Protestants and convicted of high treason and executed by hanging on November 16, 1885. Well, that's it for the daring story behind the Red River Rebellion and the creation of Manitoba. Please stay tuned for the next episode, the FLQ Crisis, the October 1970 crisis that saw Canada enact the War Measures Act for the first time in Canadian history. Now remember, at any time, feel free to leave comments or questions below, and I'll do my best to respond to them all. And please, be a true Canadian and be polite. And if you like this content, give this video a thumbs up and click that subscribe button below to see more. And remember, if you wish, hit the bell if you'd like to be notified of any new content. Thanks everyone, and have a great day.